everyone, welcome back to Big Theme India, your one-stop destination for all the interesting and informative news out there. In case you haven't subscribed to our channel, do it below and don't forget to press the bell icon to get instant notifications from our channel. Today, we will be telling you about the Ladakh issue, which is more than just a sensational and trending topic. As Indians, this is something which we all should be aware of. Our fellow brothers are sacrificing their lives at the border to ensure our security. The most we can do is to support them and be aware of what is happening to our mother India and stop spreading fake news. In an attempt to do so, we have brought you all the information about this incident so that we can all know what really is happening out there. India and China do not have a well-defined border, and troop face-offs are common along its 3,500-kilometer line of actual control, though not a single bullet has been fired for 4 decades. The border can be broadly divided into 3 sectors: Western, Middle and Eastern. The Western sector, which includes Ladakh, is governed by the Johnson Line, making Aksai Chin in Jammu and Kashmir a contested territory for India. The middle sector, consisting of Uttarakhand and Himachal, is relatively tranquil. Even map exchanges between the two countries have taken place based on a broad understanding of borders. In the Eastern Territory, China claims Arunachal Pradesh as a part of southern Tibet while India contests it. The McMahon Line was drawn at the tripartite 1913-14 Shimla Convention attended by British India, Tibet and China. So what's the problem here? It is that Tibet is involved and China is not a signatory to this pact. So I hope we are now clear about the border disputes between India and China. Let us move on to the next topic. Here are some flashpoints in India-China border relations. One of the longest standoffs between Indian and Chinese armies, of course, after the 1962 Sino-Indian War, happened in 1986 at Sumdarongshu when the troops had an eyeball-to-eyeball stalemate. In 1988, the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi visited Chinese Premier Deng Xiaoping in Beijing to mend ties, bringing forward an era of thawed hostilities. In his meeting with Rajiv Gandhi, Deng said relationship between India and China had been very good in the 1950s but turned sour after a long period after that. In an apparent reference to the 1962 war, Deng told Gandhi that now was the moment to forget those unpleasant things and look to the future. In 2017, at Doklam, near the same Bhutan-Trai junction, the troops of India and China were engaged in a 73-day standoff, triggering fears of a war between the two nuclear-armed neighbors. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping held their first informal summit in April 2018 in the Chinese city of Wuhan, months after the Doklam standoff. In the summit, the two leaders decided to issue strategic guidance to their militaries to strengthen communications so that they could build trust and understanding. Their second informal summit was held in October in Mamallapuram near Chennai with a focus on further broadening bilateral ties. Now that we are clear about the past relationship between India and China, let us move on to the current happening. On May 5th, around 250 Indian and Chinese army personnel clashed with iron rods, sticks and even resorted to stone pelting in the Pangong Tso Lake area of Ladakh, in which soldiers on both sides sustained injuries. In a separate incident, nearly 150 Indian and Chinese military personnel were engaged in a face-off near Nakula Pass in the Sikkim sector on May 9th. At least 10 soldiers from both sides sustained injuries. After Chinese accusation of Indian Army's body transgressions and strong Indian pushback, Ladakh has become a festering point for the Sino-Indian relations. The border skirmishes have resulted in Chinese military fast increasing its troops in areas around Pangong Tso Lake and Galwan Valley along the line of actual control in Ladakh. This seems to be a clear signal that it was not ready to end its confrontation with the Indian Army anytime soon. An NDTV report on Saturday, quoting sources, claimed that an Indian Army patrol party was briefly detained and released by Chinese forces last week. There is no official statement on the same, and the week could not independently confirm the veracity of the claim. The Indian Army has been matching up to the Chinese buildup in both Pangong Tso Lake and Galwan Valley, and it is in a much advantageous position in certain other sensitive areas in the region. The Indian troops are also resorting to aggressive patrolling in several sensitive areas, including Demcho and Daulat Begoldi. The Chinese side has particularly bolstered its presence in the Galwan Valley by erecting around 100 tents in the last 2 weeks. There have been reports of multiple incidents of transgressions by Chinese troops in several areas of eastern Ladakh in the last 1 week, in keeping with the increasing number of such incidents over the past years. According to official data, the Chinese army transgressed into the Indian territory 1,025 times between 2016 and 2018. The number of transgression by Chinese army in 2016 was 273, which rose to 426 in 2017. Now moving on to the question which has been there on all our minds. Will the tensions diffuse? In the midst of the escalating tension, Army Chief General Manoj Mukund Narawane paid a quiet visit to the headquarters of 14 Corps in Leh and reviewed with the top commanders the overall security scenario in the region. Local commanders of both the sides held at least 5 meetings, during which the Indian side took strong note of the People Liberation Army erecting a large number of tents in areas in Galwan Valley which India felt belonged to its side of the LAC. India said the Chinese military was hindering normal patrolling by its troops and asserted that India has always taken a very responsible approach towards border management. At a media briefing, External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Anurag Srivastava also strongly refuted China's contention that the tension was triggered due to a trespassing by Indian forces on the Chinese side. For the past 4 decades, India and China have policed the border without firing a single bullet. The line of actual control, that is LAC, runs between Chinese-controlled Aksai Chin and the rest of the disputed Jammu and Kashmir region. The rough border line was the result of the India-China border dispute in 1962, but neither side agrees exactly where it is or how long it is. Aksai Chin is administered by China as a part of Xinjiang, but it is also claimed by the Indian government as a part of Ladakh. The reported troop buildup had left many worried about the potential for such a confrontation, particularly as both Chinese and Indian media have published agnostic calls for action. Both Chinese President Xi Jinping and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi have built public support in the large part of nationalism and a promise of future greatness. This often translates into aggressive rhetoric, particularly when playing to a domestic audience. Such an approach was evidenced in Chinese coverage of the PLA maneuvers in the Himalayas. Equally, despite Delhi's public calls for easing tensions, leading Indian government figures have struck an aggressive tone, with Home Affairs Minister Amit Shah telling a rally of the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party earlier this month that any intrusion into the borders of India will be punished. He also told that some used to say that US and Israel were the only countries which were willing and capable of avenging every drop of the blood of their soldiers. Our Prime Minister has added India to that list. Speaking about the most recent clash, former Indian Foreign Secretary Nirupama Rao said she hoped the current crisis won't lead to an abandonment of long-standing diplomatic negotiations over the disputed territory. Even if tensions rise and tempers fray, they would do well to remember that they have to continue to manage the differences in a grown-up way, because armed clashes and military combat can have extremely serious repercussions for the stability of the region, going beyond the ambit of purely bilateral relationship between the two countries. Now that we know what all has been happening at the Indo-China border, let us take a minute to think about the sacrifices of the Jawans who sacrificed their lives for our safety. ए मेरे वतन के लोगों, ज़रा आँख में भर लो पानी, जो शहीद हुए जो उनकी, ज़रा याद करो कुर्बानी, ज़रा याद करो कुर्बानी।